What is up, guys? It is Beating the Bookie. I'm here with my friend Marc Nudelberg. He runs ontheball.co. They're a motivational coaching company.
Training and development company. Yeah, some of what we do is motivational. A lot of it has to do with leadership and sales and just creating high-performance cultures inside of businesses.
And before Marc went into this leadership coaching and stuff, he was a football coach for over a decade.
Correct.
You coached at
Florida State, Florida, Cincinnati, the University of Nevada, and Lafayette College. 5 stops in 10 years.
So you coached under Jimbo Fisher, huh?
I started my career underneath Coach Bowden, then coached underneath Coach Fisher. Got to work with Tommy Tuberville when I was at the University of Cincinnati, Jim McElwain at the University of Florida, Brian Polian at the University of Nevada, and John Garrett at Lafayette College. A lot of NFL and a lot of big name coaches.
Yeah, so I mean, you started out with the GOAT pretty much.
Started out with one of the greatest to ever do it. I think people would argue, there's lots probably say Nick Saban is the GOAT now at this point, but at that time, Bobby Bowden, it was him and Joe Paterno.
Yeah.
People talked about as the greatest ever.
And Bowden didn't, had the locker room issues.
Yeah, well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. A completely different history that he has.
But yeah, Bobby, I mean, I remember Coach Bowden from Florida State, the nicest guy, you could possibly ever run into. Always nice. Even if you didn't play football, he'd always find time to talk to athletes and stuff. I always enjoyed him.
I tell everybody, working with him, the number one thing I took away from him that is a skill that you can apply to be successful is the way he made you feel when he talked to you. Right? Like he would talk to you for 2 minutes and you'd walk away being like, wow, that guy's my best friend.
Yeah.
Or that guy's my grandfather. And the way he did that was he never talked about himself in a conversation. He would ask you where you were from. He'd tell you something he knew about where you were from. He'd ask about your family and your grandparents. And he'd get to know you. And it made you feel so good. Anybody can do that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be Bobby Bowden to do that. And when you do that, it changes the way people perceive you.
Yep. Yeah, he was, he's got that Southern charm.
Yeah.
Correct. So that's what it's a funny story actually about Florida State football. My mom, her boyfriend, his dad was Burt Reynolds' roommate at Florida State.
I stayed in Burt Reynolds' hall.
Yeah. I remember Burt Reynolds' hall.
Yeah.
And actually, the funny story about Burt Reynolds is, when he came to play football and, after the first year, I think he went to the coach and he told the entire locker room, "Hey guys, I'm leaving football. I'm going to Hollywood to be a movie star." And they all laughed.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
Sure, bro. Yeah.
Okay.
Good luck to you.
See you later. And well, he did, so it's an exciting story about Florida State. But so how did you get into coaching?
Yeah. So I had no business getting into college football coaching, right? Like, I didn't play in college. When I left South Florida, where I grew up and played high school ball, my high school coach knew the athletic director, Andy Urbanik, at that time. Mr. Urbanik had some opportunities inside of the team. One of them was a scholarship position as an equipment manager. So I was like, oh, cool. I can go to school at Florida State.
I never knew they were on scholarship.
Yeah, full scholarship.
Yeah.
That's how I stayed at Burt Reynolds, because they put me up there. So we got meal plans, books, everything.
And all the girls thought you were a football player.
Right, and correct. Everybody thought you were just part of the team. So it was like the greatest entrance into college that you could get. And so for me, that was my entrance into the organization. And I quickly realized that, like, equipment wasn't the thing that I wanted to do, but it offered me the opportunity to get close to the coaches and learn more about the game. And so I started spending as much time as I possibly could in the locker room and in the coaches' offices, building rapport, building trust, and trying to find ways I could add value. And it was great. It offered me the opportunity to start doing both equipment and helping the coaches. I was making coffee. I was making copies. I was doing anything I could to help the coaches out.
Like creating friendship. I mean, it's really
creating relationships.
Yeah. And people don't really realize, a lot of people don't realize that, the biggest part of having success, the biggest part of being successful, I think the most important part is creating relationships. because you could have all the degrees you want. Like you could have whatever degree you want, but if you don't know anybody, if you haven't like cultivated any relationships, through the years, you don't have that foot in the door. I mean, it's going to be very hard, to go far.
I just spoke to FAU's football team a couple weeks ago, and I stressed to them this acronym, and this is what I tell everybody, is RPD: relationships, process, and discipline. If you can cultivate those three things in your life, because relationships, as you just said, is where everything good that ever happens to you comes from, whether it's your wife and somebody introduces you, or whether it's a job opportunity. Like I got the job at the University of Florida because I had met Jim McElwain the year prior at the coaching convention and sat and drank Bud Light or Coors Lights with him. He would kill me if I said Bud Lights. Drank Coors. He only drinks Coors Lights. Drank Coors Lights with him for 8 hours. Barely talked football. Like didn't do anything other than connect and become friends. And a year later, I got fired from the University of Cincinnati from Coach Tuberville. He got the job at UF, and I called him and was like, hey, I know you're going to be looking to put your staff together. I'd love to be involved with the special teams somehow. And he was like, come on, let's go. And I was like, what do you mean, let's go? And he's like, you got the job. And I was like, what do you mean I got the job? Like, don't I need to interview or something like that? And he was like, no, you interviewed at the Whistle Stop a year ago. Like, cool. Yeah. So like, that's the power of relationships. And if you can focus on cultivating those, if you can have a process to the things that you do, like I know you and I work out in the mornings together, right? There's a process, there's a set of behaviors that if you can put those into practice on a daily basis, it offers you the opportunities to sustain success. And then discipline. You got to have the discipline to get up and do it day after day after day, no matter how you feel, no matter what the weather is. But so like I look back on my life, whether it be in football or whether it be now as an entrepreneur and running our business, those three things are the fundamentals to what's made us successful.
Yeah. And for people to, that think, oh, we got the job with, just hired that easily. I mean, you had some pretty good kickers at Florida at that time.
Yeah. I mean, everywhere in my career, I was fortunate to work with some great specialists, and I had to know what I was doing. But ultimately, there's plenty of people who knew more than me that probably were more qualified to get that job than me. But that's going to happen in every single scenario all the time. The people who have the best relationships are the ones who get taken care of, who get picked, who get put in the front, and that's just the nature of the world. So if there's anything you want to focus on investing in, like I know we'll talk about gambling and all that, but like if you take your time to invest in relationships, those are the things that are going to bring you the biggest returns.
Yeah, and I, honestly, I think that relationships, it's easy. Like if you're looking to start relationships, you move to a new town, you don't know anybody, you're trying to find those relationships. I think the best place to start a relationship is going to the gym at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a friend that would work out with me at 5 a.m. in the morning at a gym in Fort Lauderdale. And he had his real estate license, but he wasn't a real estate agent. Mm-hmm. But he had his license, and he got in for, a luxury high rise that it hasn't been built yet, but they sold out all the units. And just by meeting people at this gym, he sold 5 units pre-sale, right. Which is like $10 million. And he probably made $500,000 in commission just from meeting people at the gym, right. And say, hey, you just moved down here. You're interested in moving to this building. Let me show you this place.
Well, you had something in common already, right? Like that's always the key to the relationship is what do you guys have in common? So if all of the people in the gym are willing to get up and work out early, you have a couple things in common, that you're willing to get up early and that fitness and your health are important to you. And if you can start the conversations around that, then the opportunity to present them the chance to get a condo happens naturally.
Yeah.
Because, what do you do and how do you do it? Those things just come up naturally. You don't spend time pitching people in the elevator. Yeah. You don't show up with, this is what I do. People sense that eagerness to sell, and they're like, whoa, take it easy.
And they know if you're waking up at 5 a.m., like you're not getting hammered at night.
Yeah, that you're similar like mind, right? You have certain principles that you're going to agree on that offers you the opportunity to have a relationship with them.
So that for me, like that's the biggest part, because that's where you can cultivate all your relationships. And if you don't know anybody in the city, that's a great place to meet people also. I mean, you're going to meet more productive people at the gym at 5 a.m. than you are at a bar at 10 p.m. at night.
That's a fact.
Unless it's Jim McElwain and drinking Coors
Well,
Lights.
no, that started at like 10 o'clock in the morning. It was not late. It went from like 10 a.m. to like 6 p.m. And then he was like, all right, I'm done. I'm going home. I'll see you later.
And I think like when obviously if you wake up in the morning and stuff early, you're driven to be successful and stuff. I think that's, what helped me in my swimming career. I swam for the United States on the national team. I was ranked 13th in the world at the highest. And, waking up early every morning for basically my entire life, you just have a different mentality.
Yep.
You don't really want to be lazy. I mean, there was a point when I graduated college where I stopped swimming because I retired from swimming and kind of got lazy for like a year.
Yeah.
And I would wake up at 8, 9 a.m. My wife, who was just my girlfriend then, she would go to work as a teacher, and I would just be at home, just laying in bed, sleeping until like 9 a.m. And I started to feel like a loser, like just. And then I was like, you know what? I gotta change my life. And I was just gambling online back then. I wasn't working or anything. And my friend had worked for this company in downtown Fort Lauderdale. They had the largest IPO in history. It was called theglobe.com. And my friend was the assistant to the president. We went out one night, and I started talking to the guy, and he liked me. He was real cool, and I was like, I want to come work for you.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm not hiring. I don't have any jobs. And I was like, I don't care. I'll be at the office on Monday. Like I never had a job before. I come into the office Monday. He's like, I can't pay you. And I'm like, that's fine, whatever. So I knew like if I kept showing up for like a month that he would just start paying me.
Yeah.
So after a month, my friend went to a different position, and I became the assistant to the president.
That's awesome.
And I didn't know anything when I went there, but all these people, they had owned like Alamo Rental Car. They sold Alamo Rental Car for $600 million.
Wow.
They own Nantucket Nectars. I mean,
wow.
They own a ton of stuff. And basically, I knew nothing, and I just went in just like learning from him every single day on the go.
Yeah.
I wasn't reading books on how to do this stuff. I was just learning from him.
Yeah.
Because it's all about it's really about just who you know.
And that learned experience is some of the best, right? And the willingness to work for free. I get people to ask me all the time, oh, I want to be a college football coach. How do you think I can get in? I'm like, go show up at the office and tell them that you're willing to work for free until they'll pay you, until there's a job open. And if you're willing to do that and you're willing to sacrifice and commit to be in it, then it'll work out for you. But if you're showing up expecting to be paid $1 million because you're a college football coach and ball, guess what? There's 1 million people out there that know ball, that can get on the board in X's and O's. It's about the sacrifice. It's about the commitment. It's about the loyalty. And that's the stuff that most people are unwilling to do.
Yeah. So when did you decide that you wanted to, stop coaching and go into this business?
So as anybody who follows sports knows, you get hired and fired, or you get fired for every different kind of reason imaginable. And most of it is completely out of your control. And so when I had gotten fired for the third time in my career, I got fired by Tommy Tuberville because he wanted to hire one of his friends in my role. Okay, fine. Then I went to Nevada. We got fired as a whole staff because the AD wasn't the AD that had hired the head coach. And then I got fired again at Lafayette College after 2 years there because the head coach and I didn't get along. That was the first time that it was actually my doing that I got fired. I was just it was the first time that I had ever gotten let go and didn't have the next thing in line. Yeah. I didn't know where my next job was going to come from. I didn't have a plan. And so it offered me a moment to really think. And at that point, I had been post-grad for 10 years, full-time coaching. I had worked at 5 schools. And I was like, is this really what I want to do with my life? Is this...
Did you ever want to go to the NFL, be an NFL coach?
I wanted to go to the NFL. I thought about going to become a QC in the NFL to stay in there. But for me, it was at that point, I had gotten married and gotten divorced. I had a 2-year-old son that was living in Tallahassee with his mom. And I was like, if I go the next 20 years and all I do is work at 10 more schools and I'm a great special teams coordinator, but that's my career as a journeyman coach going everywhere, am I going to be satisfied with that? Like, am I going to say, yeah, I'm glad I sacrificed friends and family and life for this career? And when I didn't say yes to that immediately, I was like, okay, time for me to check my priorities. And so that was the first thing that offered me the even thought to do something else besides be a football coach. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I could go be a QC at UNC right now. I could go be a QC at Georgia right now. If I go out for a year.
So what's a quality control coach do? Like,
so they're essentially an assistant coach. Yeah. They work with one of the full-time coaches. Everybody's a full-time coach, right? You just don't have the title of running backs coach or tight ends coach. And you work alongside whoever that position coach is or coordinator, helping them coach the players. And it's much different now because of the way they changed the rules. Yeah. Compliance used to be very strict. Like, you have to have a clipboard. Yeah. You couldn't be like talking directly to a player. Like, there was all kinds of, and then the business exploded and you had guys like Butch Jones, who was the head coach at Tennessee, becoming a quality control coach at Alabama.
And he was washing cars, I think.
Yeah. Right.
We talked about Butch Jones' lawn, and you're like, this is Nick Saban, basically every coach that got fired, they became
the rehabilitation program.
They became a quality control coach at Alabama.
Yeah, it was the rehabilitation, and then they went on to become a head coach somewhere else. Yeah. So just like, I knew that those jobs were going to be there a year from now. So I was like, you know what? This is the time. I'm 32 years old. I can pivot now. And if I can do something other than being a college football coach, why don't I go do that? Why don't I go try? And so that's when I got out. I went into sales at ESPN West Palm Beach, and I was selling advertising. And I did it for 10 months. I won Rookie of the Year in the company. And that February, coaching carousel starts happening. Everybody starts getting jobs. And I had a friend of mine who had just taken a job at Rutgers with Greg Schiano reach out and be like, hey, do you want to coach the special teams? And I had a friend of mine who became the head coach at Murray State reach out and be like, hey, you want to coach the special teams? And I was like, nah, I'm not going back. Like,
those are long days.
Oh, it's 16-hour days, 345 days a year. Yeah. And so it was a different experience. It was a different life for me. And so I was like, yeah, I'm done. And then
I think that's what people that just watch football on TV, they don't realize, like, if you're a coach or an athlete, like, it's 365 days a year.
It's all day.
You only have a few games every year, but when you're not playing in the games, I mean, you're constantly working so that you really never get any time off. And especially college, you're recruiting. Every coach is recruiting.
Especially now, because now with the transfer portal, you have to be recruiting the kids that are on your team year round. Yeah. So you're constantly recruiting the new team members, the people that are on your team. Now you're in the transfer portal. Like, it's just crazy.
You gotta pay kids like bags of money now to get them to transfer to your school.
It's a way different experience. Not that kids weren't always getting paid, because that's not anything new, but now it's just a business. Now it's visible, and now it's competitive, and you know the kid's telling you, well, this is what I'm going to get offered at the University of Cincinnati, so you're going to have to pay me more than that if you want me to come to the University of Florida.
I mean, it is crazy. So you went. So after ESPN,
then I came back. So On the Ball is a company that my dad started over 25 years ago. Started as a marketing company and was what I thought was going to be my career, my life path. I was going to come home after I graduated from Florida State, go into the family business.
And I heard because I watched the Bradley podcast that you're on. He was on the Bradley podcast, and I heard your dad like talking in the background.
Yeah.
It was funny because I read a comment where, like, who is Macho Man in the background? Randy Savage. Like, he does sound like that, you know? Oh yeah, guys.
Yeah, right. So my dad started the company, and then when I went into coaching, he had eventually sold the book of business, but kept the name On the Ball. So after my year at ESPN, I was like, I want to do my own thing. I want to build something that's more about training and development. I want to be able to teach people what's led me to have success in sales that my dad had taught me. I want to be able to do more, and I want to be able to run my own business.
Yeah.
And so that was me approaching my dad to be able to bring the On the Ball name back, but in a training and development company. And that's actually what led me to Brad. So Brad and I are business partners in our business. We represent his product, Lightspeed VT, and we help organizations build their training systems on Lightspeed. We help them develop the content. We help them develop their entire training system so that they can continuously develop their people.
So, and you also go to like a lot of teams and talk to them about like,
Yeah. So part of my, part of our business is speaking. I had the opportunity to do a TEDx event down here in Boca. I speak to organizations. We speak at events. I got the opportunity to speak to the FAU team a couple weeks ago. I was saying that. What was interesting was that there was a lot of business leaders in South Florida that were coming in to speak to the team, to give them some perspective and options and things to be thinking about. And I guess what I did resonated really well with the team. And it turns out Coach Herman's going to ask me to come back and speak at practice to them. So it's cool when stuff like that happens. I've actually spoke at Florida State.
Yeah.
Last year I spoke at Florida State to the real estate school, and I'm going back this year to speak to them. And that's cool because then I get to be around the staff and the team.
And it's funny now, you worked for Jimbo Fisher and you're still working and he's out of the job.
I've never gotten paid $10 million a year. I'm still working towards that.
$75 million buyout. I mean, not too bad.
Yeah, no, he definitely got taken care of. But yeah, I got lots of stories from that time.
But yeah, so like sports betting is a lot mental also.
Yeah.
Most of life is actually mental. It's all about like how strong you are and, or how weak are you like mentally, like how, if you lose a game, like how long does it take you to move on like after a loss, right?
Yep.
So for me, if I have a losing day, I can just shut off the TV and go to bed, right? Or you got some people that say they had a losing day and there's a game on at midnight, it's their chance to get back to even, right? So they'll constantly chase. They're never giving up. They're chasing the dragon forever.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, hey, I lost today. Let me sleep it off. Come back tomorrow. It's a new day.
Right.
Right. So I think that's probably the biggest problem in sports betting, or, people just, betting above their means. Right. Like I always say, like, if you're betting on sports, you want to bet money that you can afford to lose.
Right.
Right. Like, don't bet your rent money.
You have a process. Right? Like the way you go about your picks, you have a process. You know what you're willing to bet. You know what the odds are that you're looking for. You know the certain indicators that you put things through that you're like, okay, that's going to – if you have a process to anything, it almost guarantees you to be successful, and it keeps you from riding that emotional wave, or it keeps you from – so for me, like when we would lose a big game or win a big game, like – if you're playing prime time Saturday night, that game's going to go till midnight.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have to watch the film and clean it up and do everything. And then you got to be back in the office.
And your adrenaline's going.
You got to be back in the office at 10 a.m. on Sunday to start working on, clean up everything with the team and then start working on the opponent. So for me, like, you can't allow the emotion of the win or the loss to affect everything going forward. So like I created a process for myself, which part of that was the 24-hour rule. Like I gave myself one day to feel it.
Yeah.
So like if we lost at midnight that night, I would allow myself on Sunday to be like, damn, I can't believe we lost or whatever. But like once Monday came around, that was it. Yeah. It was done. I wasn't thinking about it again. I wasn't talking about it again. We were fully moving on to whatever the next opportunity that was. The other part of that process was to go back and evaluate, right? Like we go watch the tape and figure out, what did we do wrong? Yeah. Why did we lose? What happened? Where were our breakdowns? And then you build a plan. So like you feel it, you review it, you go build a plan to avoid those mistakes again. And then you go get after it again. Like, all right, now we're going to go do it again. So like I would compare that to your like, okay, I'm going to bed. Yeah. Like I lost today. It was a tough day, but I'm going to get up tomorrow. I'm going to look at what happened and why we did it. And I'm going to get back
even
to my
if
process.
I have it, even if I, I used to celebrate like so much if I would have a winning day. and I'm gonna get so mad if I had a losing day. But it's like the older I get, I realize like, even if I have a huge day now, like I never really get too high. I'm just like, hey, had a great day, and never really get too low, because you can, even if you're on your high, you can be back down to your low the next day.
And I think most people who are in sales, this is why they either burn out or they're not able to sustain success for a long time, because they're only chasing the thrill of the of the sale, instead of being focused on the process and the behaviors that got them to that outcome. Because when you fall in love with the process and you fall in love with the doing, the outcomes don't even matter. You love what you're doing all the time, and you're focused on that, and you're focused on the behaviors that lead to the results. And the results are results. They're going to happen. They're going to be good. They're going to be bad. But you're always focused on what you should be doing instead of what you're trying to get.
And that's really like another thing about like work. Like you find something that you love, Like when I worked downtown for somebody, I mean, I loved getting the experience and learning from them. But the company, what they were doing, like, buying top level domains and stuff, and buying up companies, with a shell company, trying to make them, improve. I just didn't really love that.
Right.
So you really got to find something you love. And a lot of the times you find something you love, like by accident. Like I was, my dad ran a financial brokerage, and I was working with him, and I just started giving my picks out on Twitter for free. Never, I wasn't charging back in 2014. I was just doing it for fun. And then I never expected to like sell picks. I remember the first package I ever had was like 2015 bowl season. And someone was like, do you have a college bowl package? And I was like, I don't have one.
Right.
They're like, why don't you just make one? My wife was like, why don't you just make one if somebody wants to buy one from you? I was like, all right. I made it $100.
Yeah.
I picked every bowl game. And I'm thinking, maybe I can, make $500 to my wife. That would be so sick to make $500.
Yeah.
I sold like 70 in like 3 days. And I was like, all right, well, this could be a business, because I loved doing it.
Right.
Nobody was spending more time than me on the picks. First of all. That's all I do.
Yep.
Especially between Twitter and doing my picks, it's 18 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to love it, or else you're going to get burned out. And I love it. It gets my adrenaline going. And that's why I think waking up in the morning, like working out, I think that helps. And being in shape and stuff. I mean, because we work out at 5 a.m, and he's there I'll get there at like 5.
I get there at 4:40.
4:40 he's there. So, and I mean, these are hard workouts. They're not like, these are like mat drills for college football, right? These are hard workouts. They're not like a joke. And I think, being healthy, being in good shape, I think that really helps you also,
1,000%. Like, to me, all success is built on your mental and physical conditioning, right? What kind of mindset do you have? Like, essentially, there's only 2 kinds of mindsets. You're either a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. You either believe things can change and that things are variable and that you have the opportunity to affect those things, or you don't. And if you don't, then you're limiting your own success with the way you look at everything. And then it comes down to your physical ability to do things. And if you're not taking care of your body, you're not doing what you need to do, even if you have a great mindset, it's going to be hard for you to do what's necessary throughout the day. So taking care of your mind and taking care of your body is a great place to start before you start trying to have success everywhere else.
Yeah, and especially because like how you look physically, like people like can like it or not. But if if you were 450 pounds in that bar drinking beer with Jim McElwain, you think it would have been like, come get a job?
Probably not.
If you looked like Charlie Weiss, like this guy, like, come on. So obviously, like, the better you keep in shape, they know like this person keeps up with themselves, they're disciplined, stuff like that. So I know you got to go in like 15 minutes. So we had a few questions from, people on Twitter and stuff for you, since, you're the expert. I try to give motivation to people and stuff by telling them, work out and stuff, but this is what you do. My producer Kiefer says he's stuck with Charlie Weiss Jr. at Ole Miss right now. I don't know if Junior is as big as Pops. But,
does the apple fall far?
Maybe he got his mom's. I hope he got his mom's looks for that one.
Yeah.
But this question's from a Vinny. He says, ways to sustain your life changes after that motivation fades. He's 24. He's working 2 jobs. not because he has to, but because he wants to. He wants to be great. He wants to give his family everything his dad gave him. His girlfriend and him are at a stage where marriage, kids, house is right around the corner. And he wants to be able to sustain those changes and be able to keep his head on straight. This is the first time I've ever written something like this. So it seems like I'm answering my own question, but why should I, what should keep me pushing and sustaining these life changes?
So I would say, number one, forget about the word motivation. Motivation is a waste of time because motivation only happens for a minute. And in order to sustain success, you got to go back to that process, right? Process and discipline are going to be the things that carry you. Why do you go back to your process? Well, he answered it for himself. What are you trying to attain? But if you're only focused on that result, then you're always going to be chasing it and you're going to be beating yourself up because you're not there. Related to the gym, like if you want to be in great physical shape and you want to look like a bodybuilder, you're going to feel terrible every day that you wake up and don't look like that bodybuilder, which is going to make it harder for you to go do the work. So think about whatever that goal is. You want to give your family all the things that your dad was able to give you. You want to be able to do those things. Well, what are the behaviors of that person? What do they do on a daily basis? And wake up on focus on doing those things and say, okay, I'm not worried about the outcome and what I'm looking for. I'm worried about what I need to do today in order to be able to reach that outcome. And when you shift your focus from what you're trying to attain and your why, as some people to say, to what you need to be doing every single day, it shifts the way you feel and why you're doing what you need to be doing.
And that really brings me back to I like to watch Kobe Bryant a lot. I think Kobe Bryant was the most motivated basketball player ever. His motivation speeches are the best. So, I mean, if you want to get motivated, just go watch some Kobe clips. But Kobe Bryant would wake up at 1 a.m. and go practice basketball because he knew that everybody else was sleeping. And he knew that it would be impossible for them to put in the time in the gym that he was putting in to get better. So he knew that, as long as he was waking up early, he would always have, a leg up on people because he was practicing so hard, never stopping. He talks about when guys are going on vacation, when the season ends, he's in the gym the next day. Right. So it's all about stop doing stuff that does not help you get towards your goal.
That's the thing, right? Is really being able to define the behavior of what your priorities are. For me, being a good husband and being a good father are just as important to me as having a successful business. So I don't let business get in the way of being a good husband and father. My health is super important to me, but I don't let that get in the way of me being a good husband or father. So to me, I know what my priorities are. I know the things I need to do in order to feed those priorities. I'm not guessing and I'm not wasting my time, right? Look, I used to love to play video games. NCAA 25 is coming out.
It was my favorite game. I don't even have
It's the greatest game of all time.
I don't have anything to play it on.
I don't have a system, and I'm not going to get a system, and I'm not going to get the game because that's not in alignment with my priorities and the things that are important to me anymore. Would it be fun to play and would I enjoy it? Of course I would. But that doesn't fit in with who I'm trying to be in the world I live in today. If it was 25 years ago, sure. I'd be all over it. I'd be the greatest thing ever, but that's not where I'm at right now. And I'm okay with that.
And also say you're trying to, get ahead in life, but you're a bad sports bettor, right? And you're just losing money betting sports. Every month you're just losing money. Stop betting sports. Save your money for something else that you want to focus your future on, right? Just because this is a sports betting, podcast or whatever, doesn't mean you have to bet sports, right? Not sports betting is not for everyone. So if it's not taking you, anywhere, stop betting sports. And then we also had one question from a longtime follower. This guy's been following me forever. He's 54 years old. Basically, he's had some trouble in life. He used to work for a Fortune 500 company. He made some bad decisions in the past. He went to jail 2 times for a couple of DUIs. Now he's in the construction business. He began year 11 in construction, and he made a deal with the devil, he says, to work in the business, but he lives with it because he's making a good amount of money in it. And being 54, he can only, it's taking a toll on him and stuff. He manages 2 offices, he says. It's soul crushing, the pressure, managing people who don't do their job as well, having the answer for it. He's on a short rope. He says, so, why am I bothering you? Well, question for Mark is, how do I, at the age of 54, with a record, repackage myself and have the confidence in doing so in order to find a new line of work? Like, what can he do to get him moving in the direction of confidence, where he can basically get his confidence back?
So I would say you got to let go of the past, right? And that's the biggest thing. I've made lots of mistakes in my life, and I don't allow those mistakes to define who I am today, because I know what I learned from them.
Yeah.
And I know how I avoid making those same mistakes every day today. So take that failure that's in your past, own it, and then allow it to help guide you, allow it to help fuel you and move you forward. Take responsibility for it and own it. Say, yeah, that is something that happened to me. And here's the things I learned from it. And here's how I'm better for it. And here's how, like, if I was talking about in relation to an organization that I was trying to go work for, here's how it's going to actually benefit you and your organization because of the perspective that it brings for me and how I'm able to operate because of the places I've been. So taking ownership and responsibility for it and using it in a way that helps you elevate and communicate to people what you learned and who you are because of it will help you in that scenario.
Yeah, and even like taking responsibility for like what the trouble you've been in the past, right? First of all, everyone that's watching this, like, they've either been in trouble or they've had a family member in trouble or someone they love get in trouble before. I mean, it happens to everybody. People make mistakes, so if you're going to a job and you want to tell them, well, listen, I have 2 DUIs, but listen, I know I have 2 DUIs, but this was 10 years ago, and I can guarantee you that nobody at this office is going to tell people, do not drink and drive, more than me, right? Yep. They don't have a better person to learn from than me at this office, right? So, like, show them, like, yeah, I've made mistakes in the past, but this is where, I know the ropes, right? And now I can, I know the mistakes, I know what to look for. So not only am I not going to make those mistakes ever again, but I can help people, to not make those mistakes themselves. And I can scare them basically into being afraid to make these mistakes because, of what it can do to your life. So, I mean, just because you're 54 years old, listen, people are living to, my friend's grandma just turned 103 years old. All right. So you could live another 50 years. Right. So
age is just a number, right?
It is.
It's your mindset. It's how you go about attacking it every single day. And it's, are you willing to communicate what you've learned from where you've been and how that is an asset to whoever it is that you're going to work with and whatever it is that you're going to do.
And if you want a new job, say you want to work for whatever line of business it is, find 100 companies that are in a line of business, send your resume to 100 companies and just try to get one of them on the phone, right? Like I was, watching some stuff about the one guy who started NetJets, I think it was.
Jesse Itzler,
right? He said he didn't have any foot in the door, and he basically wanted, he couldn't get access to this conference that was in like California or whatever. He couldn't get a pass, and it was like too expensive. And what he did was he basically called Starbucks. He bought their entire, he bought all their coffee out, so they were sold out for the day. And then that way, when people came in to get Starbucks, basically they had to like come through him.
Yeah. He could get them the coffee.
He met Fortune 500 CEOs like that, and he ended up selling his company for like hundreds of millions of dollars. So you have to be like,
you got to find unique ways to connect with people. You got to find unique ways to get people's attention and build relationships.
You're big on he's big on LinkedIn. You do like a free coaching thing on LinkedIn daily.
So every day on LinkedIn, I'm putting out content. Part of what we teach and part of our learning community is learn LinkedIn like a pro. It is the #1 professional development tool, and it's the #1 business development tool. So if you are looking to build relationships and connect with people, LinkedIn is the place to do it. And if you need help figuring out how to do it, just reach out to me.
And we had one more question. This is from Kanan. He asked me, like, what is my recommendation for someone trying to work in the sports world, whether it be on a sports betting platform or a team. Basically, just figure out what you want to do and reach out to those people. If you want to bet in, if you want to work in sports betting, you never have. I mean, Twitter is for free. You can always, if you want to make your own sports bets, give your own sports bets out. Maybe you'll become good. You never know until you try, right? You could do that. So you want to work for a sports book, go apply to be a sports book ticket writer. I mean, they're always hiring people to be ticket writers. There's legalized gambling in 37 states now, I think it is. So you have plenty of opportunities. Or working for a team, you can just, like Mark said earlier, go listen to some earlier tips. But he also wants to know, Mark, this is for you. What are some tips when engaging with crowds or tips on self-confidence when speaking in a professional setting?
Preparation and practice is number one, right? So you want to feel confident in what you're going to be talking about. The only way you build confidence is through preparation. So spending time in the mirror, walking around your house, walking around your room, reciting the things that you're going to say and how you're going to say it will give you the confidence to step in front of the crowd and do it. Then once you're in front of the crowd, it's not about focusing on everybody there. It's about trying to spot a few people as you get started that it's resonating with. Even if it's just one person in the crowd that your message is resonating with, lock in on that person, because that person's energy is going to feed your energy and help you deliver that message and block out everything else that's happening. So you want to build your confidence in preparation. And then when you're out there doing it, you want to figure out who in the crowd it's resonating with and lock in on those people and really connect with them.
And one tip that I like to do is if you can always get them to laugh.
Yep.
That's always kind of like an icebreaker. So
for sure.
If you can find something interesting to talk about, make people laugh, make them smile, that's always a good icebreaker. One last question, since I know you're going to go. Since you coached at Florida State, Cincinnati, Nevada,
Lafayette.
Who do you cheer for in college football?
Always root for the Noles. It's always
graduated from Florida State.
I graduated from Florida State.
Me too.
So I root for the Noles. My wife is a graduate of Florida State, so we're a Nole household. I love watching football still because I watch it as a former coach and somebody who just appreciates the game. But it's always go Noles in our house.
I root for whoever I bet on.
Yeah,
I'm like a politician. I bet on anybody. I'll root for anybody. I'll cheer for Ohio State if I have to.
Yeah, I get
Unfortunately, it hurts to say that, but
that's awesome.
I'll do that. So thanks, for tuning in, guys. Mark, your website is ontheball.co.
Ontheball.co. You can find me, Marc Nudelberg, on LinkedIn. You can find me, Coach Noodle, on Instagram.
I put your Twitter on
Coach
here.
Nudelberg on Twitter. Reach out, say hello, and if there's anything I can do to help, I'm always around.
Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate you coming on. This was fun.
Appreciate you having me.
It's easy to just have a friend come on who just runs a company. So thanks for watching, guys. And if you have any questions, just feel free to hit me up on my email. Maybe we can do another one of these soon. So have a great day, guys.
Thanks.